Oilersnation Radio, a member of the Nation Network of podcasts and delivered by DoorDash. 1 hour straight hockey talk with Dan, Rick, Tyler, and Bag Milk starts now.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Oilersnation Radio, episode 174. A lot to talk about. The last time we were speaking to you, it was Thursday. We did an early podcast last week so we can get into the new year. Unfortunately, what's happened in the days since then has not exactly been great for our beloved Edmonton Oilers. So today on the episode, we got Tyler, we got Rick, we got Dan, and we got Jay joining us. We're all going to yell about the Oilers. Not great in the middle of a now 5-game losing streak, with the game against Ottawa still on the schedule for Monday, but we'll get there. As we do every week, Tyler, hit us up with our Oodle Noodle Delicious Debate.
The Oodle Noodle Delicious Debate. Will a change be coming if they lose to Ottawa on Monday? Dun, dun, dun.
Context, please. I know last night we covered it on Oilersnation.com, but Emily Kaplan had some info last night. What is that about, Tyler?
Yeah, so Emily Kaplan had a bit of a report over at ESPN where she said it's important to note that in all his years in Detroit, he never made an in-season coaching change, which Bag Milk, you've made that point for a few months now even.
Yep.
And then Emily just kind of went on to say, if they do make a change, I get the sense the Oilers wouldn't go for one of the retreads on the market like Claude Julien, who'd be looking for term. Instead, look to promote either Gulletson or Woodcroft. Skipping over a few words there, but that's the gist of her report. She did at points there kind of say that she didn't really know for sure. And the report was, flaky's too harsh of a word to use, but it didn't feel like a definitive, if they lose to Ottawa, changes are coming. But the delicious debate is, if they lose to Ottawa, should some changes be coming? Maybe it's not even a coaching change.
All right. Who wants to jump in? I'm just going to say that, first of all, I still as much as I almost want a change of voice behind the bench, as much as I think that no matter what Leon Draisaitl says about losing the room and fighting for each other, what you say to the media and what's going on in there could be different. Based on the last couple of weeks, I think it's time for change, but whether or not that happens after any specific game. I was talking to Frank Saravalli earlier today, and he made the point, and I'm just going to echo it here. It's like, if that's the move, if you're going to lose to Ottawa and then you fire the coach, why are you waiting? Because at that point, it just seems like the decision's already made. Just do it now and rip the Band-Aid. What is one more loss going to change anything? So do they need change? Yes. Do I think they're going to get it? No. Jay, you're up.
So this is specifically about coaching?
It's about whatever you want. Any
change at all. I took it to coaching.
That's the wonder of the delicious debate.
It is so delicious, by the way. This is, oh my God, sorry. This microphone headset thing is quite interesting.
He's fidgety. He's fidgety.
I'm very fidgety. I'm about to get very animated. I think that's why. So I got to make sure all the cords are away so I don't pull things out. I don't want us to change the coaching, because that's what we always fucking do. We always just change the coaching, right? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't. It's also not a matter of we maybe should change the coaching, but it's just that always just seems like the lazy thing that we do. We need to actually address some of the systemic issues that we have with the team, and that is our roster construction, and we got to focus there. That's where we need to make some major changes.
I think part of our issue
there.
Sorry, I think part of our issue though is the coaching and not utilizing the roster the way it's built. I think it was built with a little more offensive mind behind it. I don't think he's utilizing it properly. I think the bottom six was built to be a little younger and a little more offensive. And I don't see him.
You just say our bottom five's our bottom six is offensive.
No.
Built to be more offensive.
But it should be built to be offensive. It's not.
It was. Yeah, but so you expected more out of Fogle, which is what it is right now. But having Benson here, having Perlini here, Turris should be more of a 14th type of guy. Kind of seeing the action only when all these guys are on protocol and stuff. I believe he plays it way too conservative. Doesn't give the young kids enough ice time out there, and goes to your Shores and your Turris is far too quick when the lineup is built to be let Benson figure it out, let Perlini figure it out, and let Xavier get out there and do some shit.
I mean, like you talk about utilization. I know we're going to get to it later. It's on the agenda, but like playing a guy like Turris or Cassian over Puljujarvi when you need a goal. But the argument
Turris
is that
for sure. Cassian, there's a bit of an argument there, but Turris, there's not a fucking foot to stand on there.
But is there though? Like to me, like if you're looking for a goal, it's like, why not play the guy who has more than twice the amount of goals of those two guys in aggregate, regardless of how he's playing right now? Dan, what do you think?
I agree.
Changes?
Well, yeah, I think that there has to be a change of some sort. I mean, I've listened to you guys, you listen to everybody around there and everybody seems to have an answer. But for me, I noticed something in a broadcast and I don't know if anybody else picked up on it, but early on, it was like, I think it was when the Leafs were playing the Oilers in Toronto or in Edmonton, and they had Barry mic'd up, and Barry said to Cody Ceci before the game, just remember there's no friends over there. But then he also said something that nobody even really mentioned, but I thought I heard it, which was, funny thing is we don't have friends here either. And
what? I didn't hear that.
I didn't
what?
know.
Okay, so I have to go back and find
that would have been trending on Twitter across the universe. That
it was one of those
in Brazil.
I would. That's why I was so shocked by it. And maybe I'm wrong. And I've tried to find the footage. I can't find it of Barry mic'd up. But I thought he threw away just kind of a casual thing, and it sounded like a joke. But the more I think about it, the more I wonder if there is a real cultural issue. You hear what Ethan Bear said about the team and how he was thrown under the bus. I don't know. Like I'm with you, Tyler. Like I want to roll my eyes at it, but it's starting to feel like where there's smoke, there's fire in this organization. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a call up of Marody that would show the organization that you're willing to try just about anything to make this work. But right now, to me, sitting on your hands and doing nothing is the wrong signal to send.
I don't know. At
Marody's
the beginning of the year, we were all sitting here talking about how much
we're going to sit here and think Marody's the answer. We're fucked.
Yeah, that too. But we were sitting here at the beginning of the year when they were winning games, talking about like how much fun they were having, how likable this Oilers team is, the big celebrations and all that. So I don't really buy that it really could have deteriorated that quickly. I still think the room would be tight enough. I think losing definitely brings out some frustrations, and that would certainly be true. But I don't know if I
found the clip, and he does actually say we don't have any over here either, or we don't have any over here either.
Send it
about friends.
Send it.
Play it.
Yeah, send it to Todd.
I'll send it right now to the.
Because that's
actually I'll retweet it. No, CC wouldn't agree with that. I don't know. I'm just
from my own job, from my own other job. I'll tell you this right now. CC's not going to feel that way.
Wink, wink,
wink, nudge. Hello. All right. So once Dan's getting Tyler that clip, Tyler, what do you think needs to change here? Because if you followed the general playbook for a general manager, it kind of goes, you make a trade, then you fire the coach, and then what else? What do you think? Like, obviously something needs to change. What is it from your standpoint? Tyler.
He's not paying attention.
He's listening to the clip. He's hearing Barry say, we don't have any friends over here either. I'm
Tyler?
just saying.
I don't know if we have the assets right now to make this trade. I don't know if we can make a trade right now.
The fuck? Don't, man. We can pull this off. We have got first round picks.
Mm-hmm. But you need to figure out money wise.
And we've got prospects.
But money, salary wise.
Well, you know what? Good GMs figure it fucking out. You bring in a third party team and you broker it.
There's no trade market right now in the NHL. No one's trading anyone.
I know, but we better be fucking trying to. Of course, there's always deals to be made. There's no deals happening right now. That's an accurate observation. But you can always make it.
I don't think there's deals to be made right now.
The deals that are being made right now are the ones from like yesterday or the day before, where it's just, two prospects moving around or retrade, like just two guys you never really heard of that went between like Chicago and Pittsburgh or whatever it was.
Yeah, that's for like cap stuff. But like the big thing is in the sentiment that I get off social media, especially, is that firing Tippett's the silver bullet. It's like fucking so minor. It plays a role, sure. Sure, we can extract more value from this current lineup. Yeah, but sure, a new coach can bring in some positivity and shake up the room a little bit, and we can get out of this slump hopefully a lot sooner, and make the playoffs. But the thing is, like, let's look at what this team is supposed to be. We're in year 7 of Connor McDavid. We're in year 8 of Leon Draisaitl, and the window needs to be open, and we don't have a roster. We don't have the right roster right now. We don't have a roster. This roster is not going to go win the Stanley Cup. And if we expect that, then we're crazy. I don't even know if we can get through the first round right now. We are not tough to play against.
We might not make the playoffs.
Well,
depends on who you play.
So that's the thing. Like I believe this roster could make the playoffs.
Yeah.
We're just going through a weird funk
yes, they can.
and all that shit. So like, I want to preface it with that, but it's not about just making the playoffs anymore. It's about winning the Stanley Cup, and the roster is not there to do it. You look at all those championship winning, like all those cup contending teams, their third line could be our second line. Like that's how fucking deep these teams are.
The thing I have a
I'm not going.
I have a problem with.
Well, I might be aggressive, but definitely their third lines would
they play a different style. Like
their fourth lines are bigger. Their fourth lines are our third lines.
They're more blue collar. They're out there. They can handle the physicalness, and I agree with you there.
And they can chip in offensively. They wear the other teams down, and they create more time and space for the top.
That's the problem that I've got with the Oilers.
Our guys can
watching.
Our guys can chip in. They just aren't.
Yeah, sure. But my problem with the Oilers right now is that there's
physical. Everyone disappears. Sorry.
There's no all for one attitude here. There's no everybody in the pile attitude. And when we've talked about it a little bit, Jay's been bringing it up all year, especially on Real Life, that it's just the Oilers are too easy to play against right now. And there's no pushback. There's a lot of, I'm watching the game against the Leafs the other day, and there's a lot of just the passing stick waves. And I'm not saying you have to lay a body out all the time. I know that's not realistic, but you can at least get up on somebody. You can get in their grill. And if something happens near your net, it's everybody in the pile. I think about the time that Jay couldn't get in the cab in Winnipeg. And what did we all do? We all walked together. And
all for one.
The Oilers are not playing that all for one style right now. They're not getting greasy. They're not hacking away in the crease. You look at other teams around the league and they're scoring goals by getting dirty, getting ugly, getting the garbage, getting the work hat on and just digging for garbage goals. And I don't see that from the Edmonton Oilers right now. And maybe a trade does shake that up. I agree with Tyler at this point. We're in January. Not a lot of big trades tend to happen, but that's not to say that they can't happen.
Exactly.
Tyler, do you have that clip ready?
Yeah.
Spot check was around this time of year.
This is going to scare me to hear this.
Okay, ready? Everyone has to be quiet. Here we go.
No friends over there, eh, bud? We don't have any over here either.
That's actually so fucking funny.
Oh my God.
Man, that's a problem.
I didn't hear that.
That is a problem.
Don't read into this.
Rick, that's what I was going to say is that, so I heard it at the time and I checked to see if anybody else had kind of picked up on it. And I noticed that there was like one tweet at the time that had mentioned, did he say that? And so I just kind of left it. But again, Rick, you're right. Leave that isolated incident alone, except that we keep hearing little fractures here and there. I heard about the fractures. I've heard about the fractures in the past between Yamamoto and other players on this team.
Like who?
I don't want to get into specifics. But
are you talking about what happened in Europe?
Yes. When I was in Europe.
What happened in Europe?
I heard things while I was in Europe. But it's just all these little things where you just start to question: is the core of this team fractured or are they together? No. And you start to see the breakdowns. And yeah, sure, like Jay said, we go to that coaching well change all the time. But does that make the team like each other more? I don't know. And so then the question is, how do you really fix a team's culture and fractures?
So what I want to wonder about is this past week, a big thing that came out was the back and forth, call it whatever you want, between Dave Tippett and Mikko Koskinen. From my standpoint, first of all, the Oilers goaltending is just not near good enough. And yes, you can talk about breakdowns in the defensive zone, giving up quality chances. That in itself is an issue. But at some point, you need your goaltender to make a stop. Looking at natural stat trick right now, the Oilers are fourth last in 5-on-5 goaltending percentage. And that ranks them with New Jersey and Arizona and teams like that. That's just not good enough. So back to the delicious debate, Tyler.
It is on its way up.
It can only go up. It
can only go up.
That's not a.
Yeah, but if you look at the very beginning of the year, for the first little bit there, the 5-on-5 was terrible. And
if we were getting power plays, that's the thing. The league's getting we went 9-1. The
5-on-5 play in the last 10 games or so is on the way up. It is better.
Where I was getting at with this is
it doesn't have a choice. We're not getting power plays. It better go up.
Yeah. But pertaining to the goaltending, Tyler, I'm going to finish up the delicious debate with you. Pertaining to the goaltending, it's like, I get what Mikko said. Nobody wants to get thrown under the bus. Team hasn't scored.
I love what Tippett said. I love what Mikko said. At least shows that there's a pulse.
At some point, you need to get a save. And I don't think what Tippett said is as egregious as some people did. He was asked about the start of the game, and he said it was a brutal mistake. Now, the problem I have is, would he say something about that about Mike Smith? Probably not. But Tyler, we're now getting into this ditch when it comes to the Oilers, and we're talking about the room, and we're talking about guys making friends or not having friends or whatever the fuck you want to talk about. What changes need to be made? Back to the delicious debate.
As the rapper Drake once said, no friends in the industry. And that's what the TSN post says, that shares that clip of Barry saying there's no friends over here, which I just still think is so funny. Anyways, if they lose to Ottawa, if they beat Ottawa, I think you're going to see Stuart Skinner brought up. And I think it'll be Skinner up now.
Oh, yeah, I don't know why he's not up now.
I think it'll be Skinner up, and I think it'll be Koskinen down. And I think that the next game after Ottawa is Florida. I think we'll see Stuart Skinner be an Oiler, and I think he'll be an Oiler for the rest of the season. And maybe Edmonton finds a way to flip Koskinen before the deadline and attach a pick to him and get someone to take that cap hit. But I think the change won't be a coaching change. I think it should be a coaching change. I think that should have happened already. I get that it's not, the silver bullet that maybe a lot of people think it is, but it could spark the team. And you have a couple of really qualified candidates in the organization in Gulletson and in Woodcroft that can definitely step in and be capable behind the bench. I think you could very easily fire Tippett, bring up one of those guys, give your team a spark without having this big seismic change to the way things are ran or committing to something long-term. I think a coaching change should have been made, but I don't think a coaching change will be made now. I think Ken Holland's made his bed and he's got to lay in it.
Oodle noodle. Delicious debate. There you go. There's 17 minutes of us yelling at each other. And of course, if you're hungry, it's Friday. Hit our friends up at DoorDash. Get some noodle from there. Ding dong. They'll bring it right to your door. Promise. Promise. Let's get into all the great news that is the Edmonton Oilers. They followed up a 6-game losing streak now with a 5-game losing streak. When you're looking at this recent run of losses, what are you seeing in their play? Because the give a shit meter for me, that stat is ground level low right now. The Oilers just are not battling and fighting, and they're saying the right things in the media, but what we're seeing on the ice as fans probably doesn't match up with the words. Jay, what do you see?
They played better against Toronto. We have to
100%, 2000%.
Like it's remember, at the end of the day, we're all Oilers fans. We might be shitting on them right now, but we're Oilers fans. We love this team. So they put in an effort, and they might have probably deserved to win that game if it wasn't for 2 unlucky goals. But like the effort level has not been there. They'll show up for 7, 10, 12, 18 minutes a game and then just get worked over the rest. Other teams will step up physicality and completely turn us into a non-event and just run us over. So like for me, I just want to see, our power plays are down. Teams are playing us better. But if we start skating harder and trying harder and be more annoying and be more pressing on the puck, penalties and power plays will come. So I just feel like we've lost our mojo. And I don't know, like that's a pretty, that's a deeper issue to unpack to find out why all of a sudden, we're not getting the consistent effort that we were seeing early on and winning games maybe that we shouldn't have because we let 5 against us. But it's not the same team right now. And that just tells you shit needs to be shaken up for sure, just to get back to that. But that's how I've been seeing things. They're not coming to play, and it takes them 10, 12, it takes them a period to get into the game. And that's where we're losing. We're losing every game in the first period.
Dan, what are you seeing? 5-game losing streak. This one, it's a mess. You can blame COVID protocols. You can blame key pieces out. But at the same point, I think every team in the NHL is dealing with that. So what do you see?
On this podcast, early in the season. We repeated it time and time again. You can't win hockey games the way that they had been winning hockey games at the start of the season. They still continue to try and win hockey games the way that they started to at the start of the season, with coming from behind and playing from within and having to make third period comebacks and all those things. It just, you can't continue to keep catching lightning in a bottle. And until somebody steps up and says, let's just go and put 6 up on them in the first period, we're not going to see that change. And it hasn't changed these last few weeks, these last weeks of play. The team has just been flat to start, and then they wake up, and then there's an inspired effort against the Toronto Maple Leafs or whatever team they're playing, and then they don't win. And it's a continue rinse and repeat. You kind of just show up to the games knowing that that's going to happen right now, and hopefully it changes real soon.
Rick, we've watched a lot of horrible hockey in our years as an Oilers fan. This one is a little bit different. What are you seeing from the boys? Or not?
First and foremost, I want to get rid of all that fucking, they're not getting along. There's a break in the fucking team or something like that. It's ridiculous. That is.
So how do you explain that comment then, Rick?
They're just joking on the ice. He just decided to sign back here. He literally could have signed with 31 other teams in the league and just signed back here.
Because he's trying to tank them from the inside because he hates everyone.
Double agent.
Good Lord, we're making this stuff up. I have no idea. Like that's
we played the clip for you. There's no making it up. Like we played the clip. I don't know. I'm not even going to give that a time of day. Anyways, to me, they're coming out there and they're playing to not lose right now. They're playing to not make mistakes.
They're playing to not win. Why are we saying not lose? They're playing to not win.
Because because they're so worried about making mistakes and having to go back in the other net, into their own net, is that you can't play freely. And when they do start playing freely after they get a goal and they get a little bit of momentum, they do look better. They are not a perfect roster. They do get beaten up. There is a way to just out physical us and you can almost shut us down. But
not hard to do that.
Now, the way as of right now, the way they're playing to me is they're playing not to lose. And they're playing scared, and you're not going to do anything doing that. You can't go out into a fucking boxing ring and do that. You can't go into the UFC. You can't go that in the octagon. You can't do that on the ice. You can't do that on the football field. You got to go in there with confidence. You got to go in there to win, and they're not doing that, and that's why it's coming back on us.
Like, how much do you think, though, that when you start the game and there's a very, very high likelihood? I mean, I'm just thinking about me as a fan now. You're watching the game. You're settled in. You got a nation beer. It's cracked. It's cold. It's delicious. 5 minutes in, you got a goal against, and it's been that way.
They're all different ways, and they're all like stupid ways.
They do it very creatively.
It's a terrible goal. Sometimes it's a terrible goal. Sometimes it's off the backboards. It comes directly out and goes off the back of the goaltender's skate. Like there's just so many different ways that we're getting scored on that first goal. It's mind-boggling how it always happens.
But you got to think like that goes back to my point of like the first one that bounced off the backboards. I think Smith was out of position on it, but ultimately I don't think it was an egregious, horrible mistake by any means. However, that goes back to my point, though, that at some point you need a save, don't you, Tyler?
Yeah, you do. Like other good teams get saves. Like think about the Oilers when they're late in that game against the Rangers, right? And I think it was 3-1 maybe at that point. They get a break, Draisaitl to McDavid, bang. If that goes in, it's not Georgiev's fault at all. But he finds a way to make a sprawling save, keep the puck out. And that ends up being a really big part of the Oilers not winning that hockey game and coming back to win that hockey game, right? And same thing against Toronto, just the amount of looks where there's so many shots where, if Campbell doesn't stop it, you don't sit there and go, boo, Oilers got lucky. That's a softie. Like, no, like goalies make legitimately really good saves. And that's not to say the Oilers never get that, but it's just the amount of times the Oilers give up a soft goal versus the amount of time the Oilers get a soft goal is not a comment on other teams. That's a comment on Edmonton.
100%. Like, and there's the games that like we come out and we're actually playing, like we start good. Like we started good against the Rangers. I'm saying like, I like how we playing. And then we have one brain fart, they score. And our confidence is very fragile right now because we're in a slump. And that first goal goes in and we're fucked.
You can almost see the wind come out of the sails.
100%. The wind comes out of their sails, comes out of fan sails. It's just like a rift in the universe. The wind just exits the room. And that's also part of being in a slump. Like when you're in a slump, of course that goal goes in, that first goal goes in the way it did.
Both of them, and the second goal.
Like it's weird how slumps work. And that's the woo woo of sports and all that shit. But we also need to find a way to persevere. So like, I don't know what they need to do. Yes, we need management to do some roster changes. Maybe we need to fire the coach. The players also have to go on some kind of bender. Rick, you got to go take care of these guys. You got to get them to re-gel and remember why they play,
where to go,
why they go out and try to fight for each other, and try to also restore that a bit, because like you got to think about the players. It must fucking suck right now for them. It must suck so bad. Every day cannot be fun for these guys. Because of this situation that they're in. There's such a dark cloud over it, and they want nothing more to get out of it. So we have to, a bunch of things need to happen to try to do that. But I do empathize with them. But like, let's go and get a win. Let's go and get a fucking win. And so,
but you do admit that has all that negativity, mental stuff plays into your game.
Oh, 100%. They're gripping the stick harder. They're thinking like, but Cloud's thinking he's gonna pass on that. Like they're all fucking out of sorts right now. That's exactly. And that's sports. Like I catch myself when I'm playing, men's league, where I'm like, I'm thinking too much. I'll say, Chase, stop fucking thinking and just like, remember your training and just go out and do your thing. But you get in your head, and and you pile on, and it piles on, and like that's also a slump. Like that sucks. And they, to quote Chalmers, they need their slump buster, and that better be fucking Ottawa Senators. Not only just for the coaching scenario, just for the whole team mentality, and hopefully they can build off that. But the shitty thing is they go, sure, they beat Ottawa. We don't play till when?
Yes, the
and then schedule we play after that. Like this is tough.
Terrible.
A tough situation to try to get out of, given the scheduling circumstance that we face.
This is why I think a little bit of a coaching change, and not a massive change, but whether you put Gullitz in there or the guy you've been molding for the last 5, 6, 7, however many years Woodcroft's been down there. If you bring him, I think that's where that fresh voice comes in. And I don't think it's a huge change. I honestly don't think Tippett's even here next year. So you're really only taking 40 games off the guy's career here.
Yeah, I agree.
You're just starting the new era right now when you've got your roster. You really don't have a lot of moves you can make. So you bring in the new voice. You hope that's a fucking bit of a kick in the ass. You get Holloway back, hopefully. You do make that deadline trade with your first round pick, try and get rid of Koskinen or Cassian or something like that, and try and do some stuff around there. But I think the most important thing right now is just a fresh voice, a voice who's going to bring you up, boost you up, and not be part of the negativity that's already happened.
We got a chance for an 06 moves here. The team's like in a similar situation. We don't have Chris Pronger on the back end, but we've got Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid on the front end. We've got goaltending issues. We need to improve our defense, and we need some secondary scoring. Like this is like 06 blueprint. We need our Kevin Lowe moment this year. We got to trade all of our fucking first round picks. I don't care anymore. Leverage the future.
That's fine.
And go try and go and get 2 to 3 of those pieces or a version of them to try and give us a chance to go for a run. That's what we need.
What we need more than anything is the salary cap to rise. Like I'm not giving.
But like the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Washington Capitals, all the other top dogs are always fighting against the cap, but they find a way.
Yeah, my counter would be like 100%. A team like Las Vegas. They've only been in the league 4 years, and yet they keep finding ways to get Alex Pietrangelo under their cap. And like, I get that it's Vegas and it's Edmonton and it's blah, 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 but they're being creative to find solutions, and they're finding ways to help themselves. They're finding ways to cover their bases, kind of like what you would get from our friends at Cornerstone Insurance. Whoa. They've been doing it for 90 years and 4 generations. They've got all the products of insurance that you need. Auto, residential, commercial, life insurance, whatever. CornerstoneINS.ca. Left-hand side of the screen, citizens of the nation will get a little discount. Shout out to our friends at Cornerstone. One thing that I've seen kind of popping up on Twitter a little bit, and on Instagram for that matter, talking about a guy like Woodcroft. Personally, I think that he's the kind of the coach that the Oilers have been molding for the last few years. And if we don't give him a chance to do something, even on an interim basis towards the end of the season, then we're going to lose him somewhere else. I see the counter argument is, well, he hasn't been head coaching all that long, this and that. But then why couldn't you give him like a Gulletson as a associate coach or an assistant coach, kind of like what the Leafs did? And I hate to like pull from what the Leafs are doing, but Sheldon Keefe was a coach in the AHL, had success at that level. He got pulled up to the big dance, and they're doing that. Tyler, do you see the lack of head coaching experience for Woodcroft being a problem here? Whereas I see it as he's getting his at-bats at the AHL. It's not like he hasn't spent a decade plus on an NHL bench as an assistant coach. What's the deal there?
Bingo, you nailed it. He's gotten his reps as a head coach now, running a full bench in the American League for a few seasons. He has plenty of experience at the NHL level. If this guy's not primed to jump into a head coaching role, then nobody is. He's the guy. And I think you're right. This organization's groomed him. I think the experience he has with the guys on the NHL roster from his time on McClellan's staff, I think that would go a long way. The experience he has with the guys who were on this team who would have played in Bakersfield would go a long way. But also he would still be, a little bit of a fresh voice. He might bring some energy to the group. So I think it should be Woodcroft. I think he should be the guy. But again, I'm just not sold on a coaching change happening right now. I don't think we're going to get it.
I don't think we're going to get it either. Nation Dan, what do you think about that kind of the hurdle in the way of a guy like Woodcroft getting the chances that he hasn't done it as long as some of the other options that just keep circling around this league over and over again?
Well, what worries me about it is that we're going to have a situation like we had with Todd Nelson. We had a really good head coach in the AHL, and we brought him up as an interim coach. And then I can't even remember who ended up replacing him that offseason.
Dallas Aikens.
And then he went and moved on to the Grand Rapids organization, and we've never seen him since. I think he's an assistant with Dallas.
So you brought up Nelson and it didn't work. But Nelson never really got a head coaching job, right?
But let's be honest, it kind of did work because Todd came up fast and loose and just kind of came and chilled and brought a good vibe. And we were so down in the toilet, and that was like we ended the season like that was the best. That was some of the best Oiler hockey of that season.
Isn't that just like a full year of score effects there? Like you weren't that bad. You're gonna have some up at the end of the year.
Sure.
To me though, Woodcroft they've put him down there for a reason. They put him down there to put him together. He's been working with the organization for how many years? They put him down there for a reason to build him into the Oilers head coach. This is what the organization wanted. It's the only move that makes sense to me. And if you don't, then you just wasted years of this guy. Like it's getting rid of it's like drafting a player, then moving on way too early.
That I will agree with. If you're bringing in Woodcroft with the intention of giving him this season plus, then I am 100% behind it. But if you're just bringing him in as an interim tag and you're just hoping that he fixes things for you, and then in the offseason we're going to bring in another retread, then I don't want to see that happen. I'd like to see Woodcroft stay with the AHL in that case.
Yeah, they've been working with Woodcroft for years for a reason. They're not. I don't see them just fucking giving up to move on to Babcock or whatever.
If Woodcroft comes in though and the team gets even worse, well then that's different. But if right.
But then is that Woodcroft's fault, or is that the roster construction at that point? If he can't do any better than Dave Tippett did, then is that Woodcroft's fault, or is that just this organization in the roster? Yeah.
Well,
I think we can all agree though. The Oilers are not what they have been in the last month or whatever in this slump. They're not what they were in the first. Yeah. They're somewhere in the middle. Yeah. And you can say if, but I think what you get is from a fresh voice is I think you get a little bit better. You're not going to get back to 15-5 or whatever the hell we were, but we're definitely not where we are right now.
But it's annoying.
Let's talk about how Tippett is running his bench right now, because at this point on January 7th, he still is the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers. Tyler, I'm going to jump to you first. One thing that really annoyed a lot of Oilers fans, myself included, was when they needed a goal against Toronto. On the power play, Kyle Turris gets that look over a guy like Puljujarvi. At the end of the game, they threw out the extra skater. That was Zach Kassian instead of Puljujarvi. Maybe I've just got my Yessa colored blinders on, but I don't understand that move whatsoever.
No, I don't get it either. And it goes back to, again, the main problem a lot of people have with Dave Tippett is he just seems to blindly trust these random veteran guys and not the players who actually deliver results for him. Rick said Kyle Turris would be perfectly placed as the 14th forward. I think he could be their 300th forward, and I wouldn't really have a huge issue with it. Like, again, I have a weird soft spot for him because the shootout winners this year have been kind of fun. And, I liked him when they brought him in. I thought there was a chance it worked, but it clearly hasn't worked. The guy can't keep up at the NHL level. Never mind his feet not being quick enough. His hands aren't what they used to be either. Like, he should not be out there on an NHL power play unit, at least definitely not a number one unit. And you have him, and then you have a guy in Jesse Puljujarvi who has been scoring fairly consistently on your power play as well. One of the last games they won was because Puljujarvi put home 2 right off the bat with the man advantage. And I don't understand not at least seeing what you have in Puljujarvi in that Nugent Hopkins spot. Like, again, Best case scenario with Kyle Turris is he's an okay placeholder and he doesn't really mess anything up. Best case scenario with Puljujarvi is you've unlocked another one-timer option potentially for this power play who can live on that side of the ice. I don't understand not giving it a shot. And then even late in the game, I saw the, Spector and Matheson and them saying, well, Puljujarvi didn't have a good game, so you want to put him out there in the last minute? Did fucking Zach Kassian have a good game, or did I not watch the same game as everyone? Because Zach Kassian gets paid $3.2 million to play in the bottom six and bring energy and physicality. And how many years has it been since Zach Kassian did that on a consistent basis? Because remember, it was, there's no fans. Kassian's the kind of guy.
He signed that contract.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, there's no fans. Kassian needs fans to get energy. Okay. You wait. The fans come back. He's still not the same guy. He had one game against Calgary where he ran around and did shit. Other than that, he hasn't done nothing. And it's, he's a veteran. You want him out there, not Puljujarvi, who's having a bad game. What are you even talking about? Like, what are we doing here? And again, Kassian's the kind of guy who comes to play in the playoffs. He was invisible against Chicago. And what did he do against Winnipeg? Scored one goal, I think, in the 4 games. And I don't remember him laying 6 or 7 big hits like he did in 2017. So I don't get it. I don't understand why Dave Tippett doesn't want to play Puljujarvi. Even late in the game, you know what? If it wasn't Puljujarvi, because you're saying he didn't have a good game and I'm not rewarding that, reward Brandon Perlini. He was flying. He scored a goal for you.
His last 2 games he scored, and then he got scratched in between. It was very, very odd.
Dude, McLeod had a great game, then he got fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Yam had a great game, then got nothing.
Yes.
Benson's had a couple good games and then got nothing. But it makes no sense. This is why I keep saying the coach has to be. We need a voice.
Brendan Perlini played 9:37 and scored a goal. Kyle Turris played 3.5 minutes more than him. 3 minutes and 36 seconds. I did the math real quick and real good. I don't get it. I don't understand the rhyme or reason for any of this. Even when a guy like Devin Shore is getting more minutes than Perlini. Now, granted, some of that is probably because he kills penalties, but even if you take that out of it, he played, oh God, that's really hard math.
Come on, Tyler.
Shore played
There's a remainder.
No, a minute 14. Yeah, I got it. A minute 14 more than Perlini at 5-on-5. Why is that guy consistently getting more shifts than players who can give you more offense at a time when you need offense and goals? I don't know. That's what's frustrating right now, is that it's just blindly trusting the same guys he always seems to want to trust. And if you're a good young player, you better not make one single mistake, or else Dave Tippett will remember it for 2 months.
Dan,
and this is where I'm saying the roster is built differently than the coach is playing it.
Dan, you tend to be more balanced and kind of positive and upbeat in these kind of situations. What are you thinking about how?
What are you saying about me? Come on.
I'm saying it about myself too. I'm salty. If you've listened to any of the B-casts over the last 2-3 weeks, I have not been happy. But Dan, what do you see when it comes to roster deployment?
For me, with Dave Tippett, I see a guy that's in survival mode, and he has his guys that he trusts, and he's going to go back to that well until they kick him out of the roster. We saw it. I hearken back to Moneyball when the manager is trying to force the GM is trying to force the manager to play the third baseman, Carlos Pena.
Hatteberg at first.
Hatteberg versus
Pena.
And Pena's a guy that the manager just trusted and liked the stats of more. And so he goes to him. Until you get rid of the coach, that's what you're going to have to continue to deal with. So to me, if you're not making a coaching change, you're accepting that that's just kind of the way that Dave Tippett operates, because he's trying to keep his job and he's going to the guys that he trusts. He's not going to want to be a guy that walks away from the game. His last game that he gets fired from, he had Brandon Perlini out on the ice in the last minute of the game. I just think that's the kind of guy that Dave Tippett is.
Because it's so much better when we walk away from the playoff series against Winnipeg with Devin Shore playing in the top six.
Well, because he did all the quote unquote right things to be able to win the game, right?
Yep.
And so he can't then go to Ken Holland and say, yeah, I was doing things against the book, and so you can be mad at me. Instead, this is what every other hockey mind has said to do, so I'm going to continue to do it.
Jay, wrap us up with the roster deployment.
Yeah. We don't have any depth like that. You have to move Devin Shore up because you don't really, you might have some other options, but it's a function of just not having enough depth to be able to absorb a Nuge a Nuge injury or, these COVID protocols, like some of these other teams have got the depth to be able to figure out where they've got abilities to be able to contribute on the second and first line should these weird circumstances come to be. But yeah, we can say how the roster deployment has been mismanaged. Of course, we can easily pick holes in that and also have the power of hindsight to do it. But at the end of the day, for me, it's roster construction and sure, some level of deployment. But that Toronto game, it's not because Puljujarvi wasn't on the ice. We lost that game. It was Leon made a fucking stupid pass to give up that empty netter. Right. Sure, we can all sit there and isolate Puljujarvi sitting on the bench, but Draisaitl made a dumb play.
But that cost us the game. There's so many of those in the game though, right? Like McLeod, if McLeod scores, then it never puts Leon in the position to have to make that pass. If this happens or that happens.
Last man back on the blue line, blind backhand pass across that
didn't cost them the game though.
That cost us a chance to win. It
cost us a chance to even it up. Sure.
But then let's go back. So then does it matter if Puljujarvi was on the ice or not?
Hey, maybe what were the guys around Draisaitl doing? Was anyone moving to get open in a lane, or was Draisaitl standing there and everyone was standing still?
What's the smart play to do there? The blind back pass across. Leon Draisaitl,
he's the best in the world.
He's an amazing player, but the blind back pass across the blue line when we have an empty net, no, that is not the smart play. If Connor's on the ice, maybe he can sense it, but that pass is going to no one but a Maple Leaf player.
What about when they got that look on the far side and instead of staying in front of the goalie's vision, Zach Kassian stood off to the side and then Hyman put it in his crest? That cost him the game then. I don't think Draisaitl, because if he scores that, Draisaitl doesn't even get a chance to make the backhand pass.
Let's talk about Cody Ceci coming in and having all the time in the world and shooting it right in his chest. There's a lot of shit where we make mistakes.
Cuckoo did that.
Cuckoo. Sorry, Cuckoo. It wasn't.
I also think
he could have walked that puck in right into the back of the net.
But if he wants to shoot and doesn't feel confident, why the fuck is he shooting at his chest? He had all the time in the world.
Hey, listen, if those guys, I'd rather have them shoot at the goalie, because if you miss the net on the far side, that puck's going around, and that's turning around on you in a bad way. So I understand what you mean. If you're going to shoot, I'd rather see those guys try and shoot between
on the pads and hope for a rebound.
That's fine.
Right one of the things not giving you a rebound.
One of the things that drives me crazy is that the Oilers, the game against Seattle, when the last one they won, and again, I get it. It's the Seattle Kraken. They're not very good, blah, blah, blah. All of that, I get it. But what I'm getting at is in that game, there was nothing in the offensive zone that wasn't being thrown at the net. The Oilers don't have that. They're looking for a pretty passing play all the time. They're not doing a good enough job of creating their own chaos by throwing pucks at the goalie's feet, hacking away, getting garbage goals, just being real sloppy in the crease like so many other teams are doing. They're not doing any of that stuff right now. And it's frustrating.
And that's the thing. We got when you're in a slump, you just got to go full blue collar, roll up your sleeves and muck it around and try to win the dirtiest possible, greasiest game possible. And that's how you help get out of the funk. It's trying to force things and make amazing highlight reel plays when you're gripping your stick a little too tight. You got to bang and crash and collapse and bring the chaos, Mitch. And that's the
would that not be the guy with the dress shoes standing on the bench there who's got to go, hey guys, listen,
yes,
I understand what you're trying to do out there. Well, let's keep it simple. Let's put them to the net. Let's get to the net. Let's bang away. Let's get to the crease, blah, blah, blah. To me, again, that can be maybe not cured, but you can have a change in situation if the dude behind him was different and the one preaching to these guys, hey, listen, you got to keep the fucking play simple.
I'm getting so sick of the amount of times where this team gets a 30 or 40 or 20 second cycle in the offensive zone. And you're like, okay, something's cooking here. And then it's missed pass out of the zone. Oh, shot into the chest. Oh, shot wide. The amount of times they cycle and put pressure on a team and then it's a C grade or lower scoring chance it's brutal. It's beyond frustrating.
Our perimeter pressure is top. That's probably ranking
unreal.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We love the outside.
We're very good.
We talked a lot about roster construction here today, so I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Frank Saravalli's 20 trade targets in play as the market heats up over at dailyfaceoff.com. Tyler threw that in our group text. Mr. Yaremchuk, looking through that list, obviously I know Ricard Raquel is going to make your jeans tighten a little bit, but what else can you look at from that list and say, you know what, this is a guy that the Edmonton Oilers would love to have?
Well, I answered this question in a nice YouTube video over at the Nation Network YouTube. So make sure you head over there, give it a like, and hit the subscribe button, because we're going to have a bunch of really cool video content coming to our YouTube channel in 2022, and you're not going to want to miss out on that. But back to the Saravalli article. Yeah, there's 3 names I liked there. Forward, goalie, defenseman. Lawson Crouse is the one. I think he's obviously available. I worry that the acquisition price is too high just because he is available, and I think a lot of teams like him. So I like Crouse to add some depth scoring. I like the name Alexander Georgiev. Not just his name, the style of goalie he is, and the fit that this could be as well. $2.45 million on the cap, pending RFA, has decent numbers this year. If you're going to go make a splash for the goalie, he is the only one on the market. And I mean this, he is the only one on the market that I am even a sniff interested in. And I think they still need a left-handed defenseman. So I circled Nick Leddy as the one that I kind of like, but I'll admit there's a few other options there. If you can get teams to retain money, I wouldn't hate the idea of maybe Calvin DeHaan can come in here and play some decent minutes for you. And actually the 2 guys in Columbus were interesting too, Roslovic and Domi, just because they're guys who, when they're hot, they score so much. So if you can make the money work on one of them, and they both also have the ability to play down the middle or on the wing, which I love in a player. Yeah, they're both guys when they're hot, they can really get going. So yeah, there's a few names on Frank's list I like.
Thanks to Tyler for leaving 3 of the names off the list so that we could pick from them.
Dan, who you got?
Well, I have to echo what Tyler said.
The whole list.
Georgiev. I'm a big fan of. I think that goaltending and defense is the place to make the change. I've been touting the goaltending change for a while. I still have time for Merzlikins depending on the ask back there, but. Yeah, I think you have to address goaltending and defense, but Tyler pretty well covered it for me already.
Mm-hmm. Toughness, Lawson Crouse all day. We need more meat. We need more team controlled meat. And like it's we gotta be tougher to play against. We have to have those on ice threats to make sure the other team's got their head up. And Lawson Crouse brings that, and of course. Nick Leddy, Georgiev. Yes, of course. I love all that. I still don't know why we don't try to fucking go full court press on a package deal for Crouse and Chychrun and really, really leverage the future. And I don't even know if it's possible, but Vegas pulled off the Eichel trade. So obviously there's a way to do it somehow. But just make a fucking move.
Hey Jay, I brought this up last week, Jay. I said I wanted to bring in a guy, and I'm just trying to quickly bring up their fucking shit here.
We need more toughness. If we can bring in 2 guys with grit, I'd be happy.
I think Jay's gonna like this name, Brendan Gallagher.
Yep.
Man, if you could pull that off, that would be fantastic.
He's a bulldog,
right? Like a guy who can go do what he does out there to piss everybody off. The Al of Brad Marchand, and go out there and put some points up. He gets, what he can be your number 1 or number 2. Yeah. Yes, as your other one. You move Yamamoto back to number 3. I think he's the type of guy who's got the fight in the dog, not necessarily the size of the dog in the fight. Yeah. I think a guy like Yamamoto will be more than good at on that 3rd spot. And I don't know how easy it is to get him out of there. He's 6.5 for a lot more years.
There's fucking ways, man. There's
you can't just keep saying that. You can't just go, there's ways.
There's way. Well, tell me how Tampa does it. Tell me how Vegas does it. They stay elite, even though they are so the LTR thing is one exemption. But think about the year before. Yeah. Think about all the other teams. Like we're not the only one. Like there's fucking ways to do it.
We need to win a trade. We need to win a trade.
All these top tier teams, year after year, are always shedding salary. They always find a way to shed fucking salary. We just sit on our fucking hands and just hope that, just like signing Kyle Turris and bringing Duncan Keith and eating up $5 million of our cap space is going to be the solution. Like, no, this is the definition of fucking insanity. We need to try to do something pulling off a Brendan Gallagher trade. Because you want to know why? He's having him and Hyman in the top 6, like 2 agitators that work real hard. That's important. And then that pushes up and makes our 3rd line better because that's pushing guys back. That's the shit we need.
I don't think Gallagher is like a super realistic acquisition. I think I think the cap hit really makes it tough there. It is. It's a great wish list thing. And yeah, like Jay, they can make it work because they would need to throw Koskinen in a deal. They need to probably trade Tyson Barrie at some point coming up here. Pray to God Duncan Keith retires at the end of the season, even though he's been good as of late, but still. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Now I got frustrated.
But there's fucking ways to do it. There's ways to, it's happening around. That's the only thing that drives me nuts is this is happening around us all the time. But for some reason we think we can't do it.
Yep.
Well, I just don't believe Ken Holland knows how to do it.
But
that's why I agree.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that.
He can't find
a guy. If we don't have the GM that can do it, then we better go find one that can.
We're not going to. I'm like, they're obviously not going to fire Ken Holland.
It's like they're not going to trade for Lawson Krause until his stats appear in the guide and record book at the end of the season. That's how Ken Holland seems to operate right now.
See, as a resident old man here, I think there's all this. So and so can't do it because he's old. So and so can't do it because he's old. I don't know if I'm taking it personally because I'm getting older myself. Dude, look how many people went and made fun of fucking Calgary, and I hate Calgary Flames. How many people went and fucking made fun of the Flames last year when they brought in fucking Daryl Sutter?
Me.
Yep.
Everybody did.
Yep, I
did.
What
the fuck is he doing right now?
They're gonna tank. They're gonna miss the playoffs. They're frauds.
They better be.
Fuck, I hope so.
There's a shelf life to Sutter. There's a shelf life to Sutter.
Too much.
There's a shelf.
All right, we're going to pivot. I've got some questions for our friends at Buster's Pizza. Ask the Idiots is coming at you. Buster's Pizza has got a location near you, I promise. If you want to get a donair, if you want to get a pizza, whatever you need, our friends at Buster's are there for you. And if you check out busterspizza.ca, I promise you there is a location near you. Got it? Good. All right. So these Ask the Idiots questions, if you're new to the podcast, these have been submitted to me throughout the week. I have not let the boys see these. They have not seen these questions before. Answers. We are just going to get the first taste on their answers. And Jay's up first on my screen. So we've got a couple to get through here.
Oh boy.
Jay, is it even worth making a trade for a forward or a defenseman when the goaltending is so mediocre? Shouldn't that be addressed first?
Well, yes, it should, but we also need to do the other. So whatever you can get done first, get done. But we need to be doing all of it. Is that an answer or is that just me?
Of course.
Yeah, that works.
Dan, you're up next on my screen. If the goaltending is a problem, shouldn't that be tackled first?
Well, yes, but also you're talking about the GM that brought these two guys in and knew what he was doing when he brought those guys in. So I believe that Ken Holland thinks that those goalies are good and better than what they're showing right now. So yes, I agree. But he's hasn't moved on from him. He hasn't made a transaction to try and get rid of him as a goalie.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those things where, to me, Ken Holland accepted this goaltending situation, and I don't know if he's going to be able to get out of his own way to make that change.
Rick, you're up next. Goaltending is a problem. Should that be addressed before the other areas of need?
In a perfect world, maybe, but I think who was out there last year? Grubauer was the big one. That's a terrible contract right now, right? Like he gambled. He said he took the 8th best save percentage last year as a team, and he gambled that they were going to be able to do it this year, and he's kind of losing on that. There were other guys out there he could have moved on to, and they're not looking great either. So I'm not going to give him too much shit there. He went with a gamble. I get it. It's not working right now. I still believe in actually Stu. I'd bring Stu up right away here. He's got 4 out there in BC. We've got 1 game here between now and the next fucking 6.5 months or something like that. So there's no point bringing him over right now. But closer to when we get to start playing games again, I think that's when you're going to see him. But you need to fix your goaltending, and I think you need some more offense. We have 6 goals in 7 games with Koskinen in net. Sorry, you can fix your defense and your goaltending all you want. You're still not you're not going to win those. You need to start scoring more. We need to find a way to fucking put the puck in the net. So,
Mr. Yaremchuk, should there be an order at which Ken Holland tackles his to-do list?
He needs to have a plan, I think. Not that I know how a front office works or anything, but you need to kind of sit there and have your list of A targets, B targets, and C targets. And you need to have what you're willing to spend on your A targets and your B targets and your C targets. Because, you know, if a great deal pops off, like let's say you could get Jacob Chikrin for just the first round pick. Okay, well, you're not going to sit there and be like, oh, no, I can't do that. I'm saving my first for a goalie at the deadline, right? Like you need to have a plan. There should be some sort of operations, I suppose. But you need to fill a lot of holes. And there are a lot of acquisitions that would make this team better. Like, I don't believe that, you know, if you go out and get a legit top 6 winger for this team to toss in and make the scoring even scarier or make the scoring scary, I don't think you scoff at that or don't do it because you go, I think we need a goalie more. Like, you can accomplish more than one thing is the point I'm trying to make.
Just to wrap it up, my answer is if you got your to-do list of things to do, just get it done. I don't think you need to waste time looking for a goaltender when you could, if a defenseman or a forward, a trade for a quality player falls in your lap, you pull the trigger on it. Next up, Ask the Idiots for Buster's Pizza. We all want to see a big name added at some point to help the playoff push. However, the Oilers are up against the cap. What is your plan to create necessary cap space in order to make a trade happen? Tyler Remchuk, we're reversing the order.
Pretty easy. You got to get rid of Mikko Koskinen. Frank Saravalli was asked this earlier this week on the Daily Faceoff Show, and he kind of said, it might not be as hard as some Oilers fans think. So maybe it's a 4th round pick or a 5th round pick or a low level prospect going back with him. But I think you need to get rid of Koskinen this season, and you should. That $4.5 million, that's enough to get you through the deadline and bring in a couple of impact pieces. But you just got to lose Koskinen's deal. Simple as that.
Rick, how are you clearing cap space?
I wish I knew, but if you somehow get out of that contract, somehow get out of Zach Kassian's, I'm still open to looking at moving Barry right now. I think obviously if you move a guy like Barry, you still need to bring in a guy who can play 12 to 15 minutes out of the right-handed shot. I think with Ceci, the way he's playing, and with the way Bouchard's playing, I think between the three of those guys, they can get it up. But there's not a lot of ways to make a lot of room right now in terms of salary cap. There's Dan, like 3 or 4 guys. That's it.
Dan, you're clearing cap space. How are you doing it?
I'm just an idiot. So I'm going to bump my conversation that I scheduled for the day after the season ends with Duncan Keith. And I'm going to convince him to become a head coach or an assistant coach with my organization.
A player coach scenario.
All of a sudden I freed up about $3.5 million worth of cap space. You're welcome.
Jay, how are you clearing cap space?
I don't think he's allowed to do that, by the way.
I don't think so either, but I like
that. Jay wanted to know how the big boys do it, and that's how they do it. Cap circumvention, break the rules, ask questions later, apologize later.
Racing. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Jay, how are you carrying cap space?
Well, Mikko, of course. And the thing is, like, this is his last year's contract. So you're not asking for a team to take on an anchor, right? So the cost to do that shouldn't be too much. And then, trying to find a way to get one of Barry or Kassian. Like, I don't want to write off that guy, but you kind of have to, and he's going to be tough to move. But like, those are one of the things, or you got to think maybe about a roster player, like a real roster player, we'll say. I don't know who, depending on what the trade is and what's coming back. Well, I know, but if we're just saying like everything has to be on the table right now to make this team better. Everything.
They just don't have very many guys outside of like Kassian, Barry, and Koskinen that are that expensive and movable, right? Like you're not trading Nurse, you're not trading Draisaitl, Hyman, Nuge, or McDavid, and everyone else is like, in that Barry, Kassian range or cheaper.
To me, just to wrap up on this one, I loved Kassian in 2017. I was lucky enough to go to a bunch of the playoff games that year, and to see the monster he was in that postseason. We haven't seen that guy in 4 years. He needs to go. And it sucks that it didn't work out because the story was great. The chops were great. Demolishing everybody in the playoffs was fantastic. Even Todd McClellan, if you remember, had him killing penalties a little bit. So he was over and above what he was doing at 5-on-5. I just don't see the same player anymore. Koskinen's going to go regardless at the end of this year. So I think Zach is the next one up. Moving along, Ask the Idiots for Buster's Pizza. If you could undo one trade the Oilers have made over the last 24 months, undo a trade or move the Oilers have made over the last 24 months, what would it be? Tyler.
Duncan Keith trade. $5.5 million in cap space would go a long way. He's playing good. I get that. But like right now, this is what I'll say. If the Oilers went and offered Duncan Keith at his current cap hit to every team in the NHL, would anyone take it? And the answer is no. They made a bad trade. They got a guy who I think is helping them, and he's playing well recently, but they made a bad trade, and it was a costly trade at that, both assets wise and cap hit wise. So Duncan Keith is my answer.
I'm just going to tag on. I think the Duncan Keith one is too, because I do agree he's playing better. I think he's actually helping on the back end right now, but the opportunity cost of the dollars associated with him in that spot, way too high. Dan, you're next up. Ask the Idiots if you're undoing something from the last 24 months. What is it?
I think you guys are being a little nicer with Duncan Keith than even I would be for the cost that for what he's being paid, for the time that we made that transaction. That's the one you undo every time, twice a week. Duncan Keith, as good as he's quote unquote been recently, it's not worth the price of admission. So that's the trade I undo.
I just opportunity cost. I tried to say it nicer. Rick, you're next up. If you're undoing something over the last 24 months, what is it going to be?
Oh, I've been a big fan of Keith. I know he gets overpaid, but if he does so many good things out there, everybody wants to microscope the little mistakes here and there. I get it. Whatever, it helps them put everything towards their opinion. I think he's actually been a good addition. I'm not letting Adam Larson walk. I'm keeping Larson, and Barry's not here now, so we're running Larson, CC, and Bouchard.
That wasn't a trade. That was a player decision, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it
wasn't like, but they let him. It sounded like a roster thing. So yeah, it might be a gray area there, but I'm sticking with Larson.
Jay, what do you got? Last couple of years.
Well, since the last couple of years, I've got 2. How's that sound?
I like it.
We'll go in year 2 here. Athanasiou. Having those 2 picks right now would be amazing in trying to fix our current roster because we had a guy come play 10 games and fuck off, and he didn't play good for us, and he's doing okay in LA, but he's also being paid the right amount to do it. And then, I think we have to unpack this because initially I was okay with it, kind of thinking there was more potential, but I think we have to be critical of the Bear trade for a few reasons.
Tyler's got guns out already.
No. I thought you were going to say the Lucic for Neil trade for some reason. I was like, oh boy, where are we going?
Now you could say that, sure, but if we did wouldn't. Yeah, we wouldn't be getting the Flames version of Lucic. He wouldn't be. We would never have gotten that version of what's happening right now. But you got Bear, a lot of potential, right shot defenseman, very important to this community. Letting him go, not a good idea. For that reason, trading him for Foegele. Foegele wanted out. He wanted out of Carolina because he wanted to go to a team that where he can get more opportunity with. So obviously, yeah, sure, you could do a trade, but I think you could have got him for a pick or something else. I don't think you had to give up Bear to get Foegele.
That's fair. I think you're right. I think you're right with that.
I feel like we could. I feel like we could have kept Bear and still got Foegele.
I would tend to agree with that.
That's and that's an issue because we just gave away someone with a lot of upside who's doing really well in Carolina right now, and happy to see it. And getting Foegele, who's still unproven to us. Like you see flashes of brilliance. He can skate like the wind. He can forecheck, but it hasn't been consistent. He does work hard, but it hasn't been consistent. He shows his flashes of skill out of nowhere, just like walking around guys. But I feel like you could have got him for something else, and we could still have Bear.
Very last question for Ask the Idiots for our friends at Buster's Pizza. It's funny you guys brought this up because our friend Electronic Jordan wants to know, what are your thoughts on Lucic for Neil now with a couple of years of hindsight? Tyler?
I'm still fine with it. Lucic was never going to succeed here. That ship had sailed, and you wanted Neil because the contract was buyoutable, right? So I still would do that deal looking back on it, even though Lucic is contributing a little bit in Calgary. At the end of the day, the difference between the Neil buyout and what you have in Lucic is what, $4 million? I know there was some salary retention there as well, but I would just rather have the cap space over Luch. So I'm still fine with the deal.
Rick, Luch for Neil.
I wanted Luch to work out. That's a player I'd love to be able to love and see him go out there and, do what he does. But at the end of the day, he wasn't going to turn his game around here. Things weren't going to get better here. We had to move on when we did. As much as I'd love to have a player like that here, I have to just say, you know what, we won that deal. So,
Dan?
We're literally talking about a guy that makes $5.5 million that's doing okay, but we're expecting more of him. And that was always going to be the case with Milan Lucic as well. So for me, like you said, Tyler, the fact that James Neal's contract was buyoutable is the reason that we made that trade in the first place. We knew the risk was that James Neal was going to fall apart, as he has. And, it just is what it is. But we're out of that money, and now we're into that money with Duncan Keith instead.
Jay? Wrap us up. Lucic.
Well, you can look at it a little bit differently than that, though. Instead of connecting him to Duncan Keith, you can connect him to who would you rather, Milan Lucic or Zach Hyman?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. Yep. So that's what, that trade allowed us to do. So I would take Hyman over Lucic any day.
And there we go. Assy it is for our friends at Buster's Pizza. I'm going to push a little randomizer thing, spinning to see who wins the gift card from our friends at Buster's Pizza. And Ericsson Aviation, you get the win on this week's gift card. They asked, how do you clear cap space if you're going to bring in somebody for a playoff push? Again, if you're listening to this, hit me up in the DMs, slide in and say you got an Ask the Idiots question. I ask the boys every week. They don't get to see them. You just get their first thoughts and their authentic opinion. Tyler, get your buttons ready. It's time to finish up the podcast with another round of hot and cold performance from our friends at Deuce Vodka. Again, if you go to deucevodka.com, you see Brett Kissel there, right at the top of the page. Very handsome, holding a bottle of Deuce. Right beside that, there's a store locator. You're going to want to click on that, baby. Find out where you can buy it. As we do every week, we start with our veggies. We look at the last 7 days, a little bit of the downsides, and then we finish off with a positive note. Jay, your guest in on this week's podcast, your Deuce Vodka Cold Performer of the Week.
It has to be an individual?
Or just anything, whatever you want.
Everyone on the Oilers except Yamamoto and McLeod. Or my cold performers.
Sorry, my buttons are frozen.
Usually Tyler's really fast with the buttons.
He's always fast with the buttons. Very, very set. There we go. Nation Dan, you're next up on my screen. Your Deuce Vodka Cold Performer of the Week.
Well, I recently started to learn how to skate, and so I'm an expert in falling on the ice. And so my cold performer of the week is going to go to a person who is not an expert at following, and that is Mikko Koskinen. Your diving game, my friend, needs some work. You got to work on the embellishment. The veteran moves is a part of goaltending. We all get it. But if you want to reach out, I can show you a couple ways on how to fall more naturally, and maybe you can help me on recovering from my injuries. So Mikko Koskinen, you get my cold performer of the week.
Rick, you're up next. Deuce Vodka Cold Performer of the Week.
It's kind of been a thing with me the whole podcast here, but I'm going with the guy who stands behind the players, stands on the bench there. I just don't think Tippett's utilizing the roster to the maximum potential it has. I'm not saying it's a perfect roster. I'm not saying that if you play the guys I'd like to see you play, that things are going to be that much different. But we're losing. He's not changing. I just personally, I think there's other options for this lineup right now. So I'm going to give it to old Tip. And you know what?
Are you
bring him back, if he really cared, if he really cared, he'd at least bring back the mustache for the fans. And there is no buy-in at all to this team. It's over. Wash your hands, move on right now.
Now you can hit the button, Tyler.
Oh, are you thrilled? I'm not.
Mr. Yaremchuk, your Deuce Vodka Cold Performer of the Week.
I feel like the roads are a lot worse than they are in years past. Like the roads are really bad. And I don't know why. They're really bad in St. Albert as well. Better in Edmonton a little bit. But I just feel like the roads are really bad.
Buddy, it's been minus 30 and snowing for 3 weeks. Like, what do you expect?
Yeah, I just feel like it hasn't been this bad before.
Mother Nature is the
we haven't seen this much
for bringing the pain.
We haven't seen this much snow in a long time.
Oh,
yeah.
Fucking
and it's wild
too. Right now.
I mean, you can't disagree though. Roads are bad.
That is true. But it's also wild too, because it's so cold. I feel like normally you don't get snow when it's this cold, but we're getting dumped.
We're getting it all.
And the roads are getting it all.
Next week. Let's go. Let's go.
Wrap it up. My Deuce Vodka Cold Performer of the Week is being scored on first. Always. It's just so demoralizing for me as a fan to watch. I sit down. I mentioned it earlier. I'm excited about the game. I'm ready to interact. I've got bets on the game. I'm putting my money where my mouth is, betting with my heart all season long. And then just to get that swift kick to the pills, that is a first period goal in the first couple of minutes. Man, that's a trend that needs to change. So I guess that trend of first goals against, Cold Performer of the Week, the month, the year, you name it.
Yeah, it's a little more than the week.
What the hell is going on?
Flipping the ledger. Let's finish it off. Deuce Vodka, Hot Performer of the Week. It could be a player. It could be something personal. It could be whatever you like. Mr. Yaremchuk, you're first up. Deuce Vodka hot performer of the week.
My hot performer of the week is going to a gentleman named Xavier Moon, former Edmonton Stinger. This guy's winning rings with the Edmonton Stingers, and now he's out here signing contracts with the LA Clippers. Back-to-back 10-day contracts for Xavier Moon with the LA Clippers, which I think is just so dang cool for a guy who was playing at the Expo Center recently. From the Expo Center to the formerly named Staples Arena. That's insane.
The crypto.com arena. Thank you.
Crypto.com arena now. Anyways, Xavier Moon, I know you're in COVID protocol now, and I know you're a big time listener of this podcast. Congratulations on making it to the NBA. You're my hot performer of the week.
Put some respect on my name.
I don't know if he actually listens.
Of course he does. Rick, you're next up. Your Deuce Vodka hot performer of the week.
Well, there's got to be some optimism out there. So he returned to practice today. He was not wearing any type of red "Don't Touch Me" jerseys. Unfortunately, I did hear, the wrist was looking not fantastic. Puck handling skills weren't really there. The shot wasn't looking too good. But you've not been doing anything with your wrist for the last couple of months. I'm guessing that's kind of goes with it. So it's the return of Dylan Holloway. He should have been here. Most likely would have been here the whole season. Not just from what, Oiler followers say, but just the league in general. They said he's ready to roll. So I don't anticipate to see him anytime soon, but hopefully maybe at the start of March. But yeah, it's the return of Holloway. That's a big addition that could really spark this team right now.
He's a hot guy.
Yes, he is. Nation Dan, you're next up. Your Deuce Vodka hot performer of the week.
Well, when the the official paper transaction came through on October the 13th, I don't think a lot of us would be looking back and saying that might have been the best pickup that Ken Holland made this offseason, except for maybe Zach Hyman. But my hot performer goes to Colton Sevier, who of all of the additions this offseason has really not had a bad game, in my opinion. And every time he shows up in your memory bank, it's because he's done something positive. That pass the other night against Toronto, the little backhanded pass that got the puck right to Ryan McLeod on the other side. Love to see that kind of stuff from a bottom six guy making $750,000 a year. So Colton Sevier, you get my hot performer of the week.
Pour it on.
Can I just also say on that point, it was funny how in the preseason we were all like, Perlini, the second coming, the answer. Who's the Sevier guy? He's done nothing. And then,
and you know what? Colton Sevier he's one of those guys that I think Jay was alluding to earlier, where he puts on his work boots and gets after it. And he's going to score you a greasy goal every now and then. And chances are, if you get something from your fourth line or third line, he's probably involved. Jay, you're up next. Your Deuce Vodka hot performer of the week.
Mine goes out to the New York Rangers broadcast crew for accurately
telling it like it is,
accurately picking apart our lineup and giving the fans the truth as to what the issues are with this team. So it was initially kind of offensive to hear, but kind of also, it felt, as I kind of was processing it, I was like, these guys are doing the right thing, and they're telling that and the truth hurts. And shout out to them for just systematically taking us down with like accurate, factual information.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Really did. And then when they started throwing in these Strom for Spooner reminders, it's just like, all right,
they
now
said
you're just twisting the knife.
That's
why
it was like 36 trades in 36 months. I'd probably would have brought that one into the mix, but I didn't have that much time.
They said so much that I was convinced that they didn't know that they were actually doing the Oilers broadcast as well.
They did know.
But they did. And then they started, then they started acknowledging us. I was like, oh my God, they're doing this on purpose.
Good.
Hey, sometimes I think I said this last week, or I think I said this on the B-cast. You know what? That was one of those ones where some of you guys needed to hear that. And
they also could have thanked us for the 94 Cup, though.
Well, yeah, of course.
Would have been the polite thing to do.
That would have been very nice. I mean, a little bit of courtesy there, please. Just to wrap it up, Deuce Vodka hot performer of the week for me. I want to give a shout out to dailyfaceoff.com's Frank Saravalli, because today, I'm going to be recording a little bit later this afternoon, the first episode of my podcast, Better Late Than Never. And I'm excited about it because Frank gave me 10, 15 minutes of his time to be the first guest on my show. I was expecting to fly in with no guest this week. And then Frank, I just asked him if he could just give me a couple of minutes, and he was more than generous. He's going to have takes on Dave Tippett there. He's going to have takes on the goaltending. He's going to have takes on what he thinks is coming for the Oilers and what's going on. So check out this weekend the first episode of Better Late Than Never, but my hot performer of the week is Frank for doing me a favor.
I like this right here.
I like that too. All right. There we have it. Oilersnation Radio episode 174. A little spicy, a little upsetting. Oilers don't play again until Monday. And then after that, they've got some time off. So keep it locked in. We're going to be back next week, as always, with the podcast.
That Monday game, are we sure about this Monday game? Because they just had like the bookends of that Monday game canceled or postponed or whatever.
I'm looking at the schedule right now, and you can still get tickets for the game on Monday. So as of 2:25 p.m. on Friday, January 7th, the game is still going ahead.
Game on.
All right.
I was talking to friend of everyone, Reed Wilkins, yesterday, and he thinks that game's still going to go on because Ottawa's schedule may not allow them to come out west later in the year. So even if it's an empty barn, he thinks they may still play that. Whether it happens, I don't know.
Justin's going to suck.
Oh yeah, no fans in the stands.
Oh,
what about it?
I forgot about the fans. I thought you were just saying that. Like, Cassian's going to be terrible.
But this could be the 10th game in our 10 in a row.
That's not true. You're allowed half fans. They just can't eat or
as
drink.
of today.
Right. Yes.
As of today. Yeah. You were allowed half capacity, though who knows what'll happen. Cause I saw that Vancouver's game tonight got postponed. They were also going to be half capacity. Follow my excellent content.
You know what the funny thing is? In Vancouver, it's half capacity, but the box, if you have a private box, you can still fill it with however many people are allowed to be in there.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
Everybody knows that COVID stays off the luxury levels. Okay.
Yes. It also shuts down at 10 p.m. Okay.
And the no food, the no eating, and the no drinking. Oh,
it's just because nobody wants to use masks, Jay.
Just what a way to enjoy a hockey game with no beer and no food.
Yeah. Right. Dry January. Here we go.
Yeah, it's just going to make you do it.
Dry Feb.
Sure will.
Whether you want to or not. All right, there's Oilersnation Radio, episode 174 for DoorDash, Ding Dong, Oodle Noodle, Cornerstone, Deuce Vodka, and Buster's Pizza. Thank you very much for being here. For all the gentlemen, thank you for being here. Again, I haven't got to any reviews in a little bit, but please hit us up with some reviews. I will read those next week. Make sure that your comments are also added into the podcast. So if you have questions for Ask the Idiots, hit me up, slide in the DMs. From myself, from Tyler, Rick, Dan, and Jay, this is the end of the episode. Tell a friend, cousin, coworker, whoever you got. Yell it out the windows. Oilersnation Radio coming at you every Friday afternoon. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Shout out Todd Nelson.
Thanks for listening to Oilers Nation Radio, delivered by DoorDash. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram.